If someone's listening today, thinking about quitting their job to get into real estate, how long do you think it would take?
I would say that for someone to go from working 9 to 5, let's say they'd never done a deal before, I'd say the average person could do it in 12 months.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we have Tony Javier with 10X TV and Tony Flynn from San Diego to answer the most pressing question. What is the number one marketing channel to scale your business? Now, I am on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on the show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you'll become one. And this show is brought to you by our sister company, InvestorLift. Get access to millions of cash buyers across the country. Go to investorlift.com, put in Disruptors to get 10% off. And guys, if you get value out of the show, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
Do it.
All right. So the last time you were here, we were talking about, what's changed in TV marketing and this and that. But before we even do that, we were talking offline about working smarter inside your business. What does working smarter inside your business mean?
Great question. I love talking about this topic because for the first 10 to 12 years, I worked really hard and I didn't work very smart. And I feel like I've dedicated especially the last 5 to 7 years with working smarter. And to me, smarter means what you get out or what you put in is exponentially less than what you get out of it. You get exponentially more when what you get out. And so for me, there's probably 2 to 3 things that I think have allowed me to go from working 60 to 80-hour weeks in my real estate investing business to working just a few hours a week in my real estate investing business. So I can touch on some of those. The obvious is people, right? A lot of people try and do a lot of things themselves, which in the beginning you kind of have to, right?
Right.
But as time goes on, you realize that you probably aren't the best at everything, right? I mean, there's times
Highly unlikely you're the best at everything.
I'm sure you remember, like, I have to do this because it needs to be done right. To me, it's like somebody else needs to do something now because I want it done and done right. To me, I don't have the time necessarily to try and do everything.
Yeah.
And I can typically find people that are better than me at doing certain things. I don't want to go run a PPC campaign. I don't want to, remodel a house. I don't want to take sales calls. I mean, those are things that aren't my genius. And so finding people that can do what you're not good at and what you don't want to do, and then take the things that you're really good at and keep those. So for me, it's taking the things that, 1, I enjoy doing, 2, that I'm good at, and 3, that provide a lot of value. Those are the things that I keep and that I do in my business.
Say that list again.
It's, do I like it? Does it bring value to the company monetarily wise? And am I good at it? So am I good at it? Monetary, and I like doing it, right? Things that bring you joy. And you've heard the term, if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life, right?
Yeah.
So I love working on marketing. I love working on ideas. I love working what we just talked about a little bit ago and taking over the world.
Right.
What can we do next to take over the world, right? So those are the things that I love to do. All the little stuff like implementing things, that's not my genius, right? I love seeing things. I love visualizing them. I love talking to people about them and then working some kinks out and saying, go do it to my team.
Yeah.
Right?
So a couple different things. So first, this is something that kind of evolved into, right? It's not like tomorrow you just say, you go do this. Because you hear the message, do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, which is true eventually, but not when you start. When you start, you got to wear all the hats. So how long did it take to go from wearing all the hats to now you get to do what you love, it's valuable to the company, and you're good at it?
So I started in 2001. YouTube wasn't around, Facebook wasn't around, masterminds weren't around. So I had a pretty big disadvantage, but I guess the advantage I have is there wasn't nearly as much competition.
Right.
So from 2001 to 2010, I worked really, really hard in my business. I put my nose down, kind of went to some conferences. I kind of, went to some meetups, things of that nature, but I was grinding away. And I thought that's what you had to do. I thought if you went to networking events, you didn't get as much done, that if you...
It was a distraction.
100%.
Maybe you're giving away secrets.
And if you ask for help and you tell people you're struggling, you're weak, all that stuff. So I just put my head down and just worked. And I hit a bottom point in 2010 where I fired my whole staff within a 30-day period, and that was the third time that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so from then I was like, okay, I got to make some changes. And luckily I found someone who ran a successful real estate investing business that didn't look at houses, didn't show properties, didn't meet with buyers, didn't meet with sellers, and had one or two other successful businesses on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, I was like, how does he do that? There's no way you can be successful in real estate without meeting with a seller, without managing the projects, without keeping your hands on things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hired him as a coach and got in my mind, like, you can do this business without working in every single aspect of your business.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually I just kind of chipped away at it, right? I hired my sister.
Mm-hmm.
She's been with me now 13 years. And I leveled up. So talking about people, I leveled up my game with people. So she was the most I'd ever paid at that time by a long shot. And now I pay her 3 times that amount. So she's really grown, helped me grow the business, and I've rewarded her in the process. And it just came from pain. It came from hitting rock bottom and saying, I need to make a change. And then luckily I found that coach. And then again, I just chipped away at it. What are the things that I could hire for and kind of start giving people? And it took me from, I think 2011 or 2012 was when I hired that coach. In 2015 into 14, I think, so 2 to 3 years, I was able to, once I had it in my mind that I could have a business successful that ran without me, I went from Wichita, Kansas, and moved hundreds and hundreds, actually over 1,000 miles away to Tampa, Florida for a year, and then I'm now in San Diego. But I was able to move far away from my business after a few years of just, 1, having the vision that it can happen,
and
then 2, just chipping away at it. It's not overnight, like you said, or like you, I think, insinuated. It takes some time.
Takes some time, but you also had to have the skills, because it's not like you listen to the show, like you're listening to this in your job, like, oh, if I quit my job, it'll take me 2-3 years to get here. You had to have cut your teeth, made some mistakes, had some big wins, had some big losses along the way before you had the idea of removing yourself from the business, I imagine. Right? So if someone's listening today, right, they've never done a deal. They're on the cusp, not on the cusp, but they're thinking about quitting their job to get into real estate. What would you speculate? I'm curious, because I have some ideas too. What do you speculate would take from someone that just quits their job to being completely removed from their operations?
What steps does it take?
How long do you think it would take?
Oh, how long? That's tough because we actually have people that are running TV commercials with us that have a full-time job. And they do that purposely because they want a consistent income, but they want to invest in real estate. And
fascinating.
They, some of them I think are kind of trying to work themselves into, out of their job. And some of them just like that safety and security, or have been with that job so long that they just like it.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's so situational. It's all about, it's the skill, it's the execution, it's who you surround yourself with, it's how much money do you have to invest in coaches or systems and operations. I would say that for someone to go from working 9 to 5, let's say they'd never done a deal before, I'd say the average person could do it in 12 months.
Yeah.
Because in real estate investing, it doesn't take that many deals to make good money and replace your income.
It does not.
The average household income is what? 40,000, I think. Somewhere between 40
it's
and
always
60,000.
been around 42, 43,000, which is crazy to even think about. But yeah.
Yeah, you make that on one deal.
Yeah.
Right? So we actually, I had someone 21 years old. In his first 3 deals, I think he made over $200,000 in 3 deals.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he had a job beforehand, but I mean, think about it. You make that much money on 2 deals, that gets you going, right? So I think it's situational, but it can happen in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. So let's think about this, right? Just a thought experiment. So I'm working at Intel, right? This back in those days. I called Tony, like, hey, I want to get into real estate, and I want to just start with TV. So what would be the budget you would recommend to someone? Let's not say a major market like Phoenix, but like a mid-market. What would be the budget to get started into TV?
Great question. So first of all, TV is not for everybody.
Right.
We do have some investors that we've gotten started with TV commercials. We're pretty picky about who we want to do TV because it is an investment and there's a commitment to it. But I started, when I started TV commercials, if you remember the story I told last time, I started with $3,000 a month.
Right.
I was able to get hundreds and hundreds of commercials for $3,000 a month. My first month, I made $35,000.
Yeah.
Right. We have a minimum now that we have. It's at least $5,000. Really, it's probably $7,500 a month, but $5,000 a month is probably what you want to spend. There's some small markets that we can't even really spend $5,000 a month, and it doesn't make sense for us to spend more than that.
Yeah.
So I would plan on at least $5,000 a month for sure.
Okay. So let's say $5,000 a month, and then do you have an idea? Let's just say again, a mid-tier market or a mid-sized market, what their typical fees are, typical assignment fees are.
It's all over the place. I mean, we've had someone that's invested $5,000 a month in a market, and they were making consistently $100,000 to $200,000 a month for their first 6 months.
Yeah.
It was crazy, right? And then some we have spending a lot more than that their months aren't as big, right? So the numbers are all over the board on what to expect. But if you do the math, let's say you spend $5,000 a month and you're making $25,000 on a deal on average, which is probably what most investors are making now between wholesale and fix and flip, some higher, some lower. You only have to do one deal every 5 months to pay for the ad spend. Obviously, you don't want to just pay for the ad spend, but if you do one deal a month, you're 5xing your money. You do 2 deals, you're 10xing your money, right? So it doesn't take that much to get your money back from TV. And the great thing about TV is that it, just like when I launched 11 years ago now, TV commercials, it performed very quickly. Almost every single person that we launched, because we get them so many commercials, we get so many eyeballs on their commercials. They're typically doing at least one, if not three plus deals in their first month, and they're off and going. So yeah, it can perform very quickly, and it doesn't take that many deals to really see a good return.
Okay, because again, I'm just going through the thought experiment. So, $5K, $25K. Let's just assume maybe it takes you 3 months, right, to get your first deal. You're still up $10K, right, over 3 months if you're spending $5K a month. Do another deal or two. You're getting pretty positive pretty fast. At this point, you can hire an admin. You can hire an assistant. Eventually, you can grow you've got the marketing figured out if this is working, right? Then you can work on your sales skills. One of the skills I think pretty critical, pretty crucial to learn. You get your sales skills down, you get your conversions up. You can start eventually hiring salespeople and transaction coordinators. So it doesn't seem like you're saying 12 months. I don't think it's unrealistic to be able to get to that point. I think the greatest challenge is going to be the individual. I'm sorry, we haven't even brought up coaching yet. And you guys have a coaching element within your group. It's like a little mini mastermind.
Yeah, we do bi-weekly calls with our clients.
So on top of that, there's a little bit of there's coaching included in your services. So between all that, it really is up to the individual how well they can absorb all these life skills, business skills, right? Because you said you started 2001. When did you say?
Yeah.
Right, and I started looking back. I bought my first rental property or investment property in 2005, but I didn't really start actively until 2007. So to compress, the 16 years that I've been actively in it, 22 active years you've been actively in it, how quickly could someone absorb the experience, the wisdom, don't do that, that's a bad idea? Because I mean, how many bad ideas have you had throughout? If you were to get
I have some every day, I think.
Right? Just these tragically horrible decisions we make. Like, okay, well, we're going to have to spend the next 3 or 4 months undoing that mistake. Right? And I think we're going to get to some of those mistakes later on. So I'm just wondering, like, maybe is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years to get to a point from day one, I'm quitting my job, I'm all on TV, to like, I am no longer involved at all, or I'm involved less than 4 hours a week?
Man, again, it's situational. I think I've had some really smart people that have started TV with us that I looked at their business and I'm like, you're only in this business for 2 years now and you're doing over 100 deals a year and you have X amount of people working for you and I mean, I think they're maybe a little bit more hands-on in the business, but they did it in a short amount of time.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has to do with education out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much education out there. You know, when I started in 2001, I got CDs I had to put in a computer in order to get the data and read the workbook, because I bought Carlton sheets back in the day.
Gotcha.
So it was a workbook and CDs. These days, you can literally pull up your phone, listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube video, get this great idea, call Tony or whoever to get their marketing going.
Right.
And then they're a real estate investor. And then they have masterminds they can go to. And then they have people that they can call. They have all kinds of content that they can consume. So,
business coaching.
So again, it's down to how dedicated are they to consume that? How fast can they implement it? There's so many different factors. But I would say...
Yeah, so are they willing to invest? Are they willing to put in the work? How quickly can they absorb?
Right. And I would say the average, and I'm not going to say the average person because there's no offense to anybody, but there's people that you just know aren't going to be able to make it.
Yeah.
That it's just not going to work for. So I'm going to take the ones that I feel like are motivated and above. I would say within 12 months, you should be able to replace your income. And to get to a point where you're not working in the business anymore, that could happen in another year as well. There's a lot of different things that come into it. Like the gentleman, the 21-year-old, he made $200,000 in his first 3 deals. Let's say someone else makes $30,000 in their first 3 deals. It's dramatically different the amount of capital you have to reinvest.
Right.
So it's very situational. But I would say, again, just to answer your question, it can happen within a year to 2 years where you can go from never investing in real estate to investing in real estate to a business that maybe doesn't run without you. But it also depends on how big you want your business.
Yeah.
Like you and I, we don't want just to sit back usually. I mean, I say I work a few hours a week in my real estate investing business, and I take the other 37 hours and do other things.
Right.
You know, I've cut it luckily back to a manageable 40-hour week. But yeah, I mean, it's very situational. If I make $100,000 in my first deal, it's a lot different than if I lose $30,000 in my first deal. Then I'm going to be out of the business most likely, right? Which I see a lot of people do.
Yeah. You know, you talk about there's a group of people, larger number, that we have not a lot of hope in. There's a handful that we see have potential. It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast. It was Impact Theory. He has a CIA agent. I've been meaning to watch it forever, and I finally watched it this past weekend. And he says the way the CIA recruits is they look for individuals that have experienced trauma as kids.
That's usually the people that are crazy enough to start a business.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to have a situation, and there's like all sorts of different trauma, right? But you have to have some sort of trauma, but not too much trauma.
Makes sense.
Because if you have too much trauma, you now require external coping mechanisms. And now forget it. But if you don't have any trauma, then you're totally fine just living the normal life, right? Like we look to see like the schooling system and go to college and then go get a good paying job and then work until you're 55, 60. Those are the people that I guess are not as broken or screwed up as we were when we were kids. I mean, according to the CIA.
So would you, in an interview, ask people about their traumas?
I'm thinking about it. I don't know how.
I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, whether they would disclose 100%, but I think if you dig enough, people would probably disclose somehow that they had some kind of.
Yeah, and the truth is, someone asked me, I was like, I didn't have trauma, right? Because like my parents they loved each other. They're still married, right? They worked their butts off, and they put 6 boys through college who all have engineering degrees. So it'd be pretty hard to make the argument that there was trauma. At the same time, they were never available because they were both workaholics. So I did have to fend for myself, right? And that's that part where you're a problem solver, is that if your parents are never home, then you do have to take care of things. Not for lack of love, but lack of attention. So you need to do some certain things. The other thing he talks about in that episode as well is that if mom and dad are super busy, in his case, his mom was super busy because she was a single mom. But mom and dad are super busy, how do you get their attention? Either positively or negatively, right? Either you do something really bad, and then that's not good, or you have to excel.
For me, it was excelling. It was sports, mainly sports. I mean, I played 4 sports all year round, and you know that was my thing. So yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you have to excel in order to get mom and dad's attention. And I actually just hired a recruiting company. I haven't inked everything yet, but yeah, like what they look for are college athletes, right?
I love college athletes.
Because we run a sales organization, we're actively looking for people that play college sports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even high school, I think, is good enough if they played at a high enough level, but definitely college. That takes. I played college football for a year. It's a different animal.
Yeah,
different animal for sure.
Well, I didn't play either. I didn't play college. I didn't play high school. Yeah. So, but anyway, it was interesting this idea of how the CAA recruits.
Mm-hmm.
So, now you like to do inbound marketing versus outbound marketing. Talk to me about the theories of marketing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different marketing methods, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll go from the top to the bottom. And what I mean by the top is those that don't take quite as much time and that perform well and that you have people calling you. And then all the way down to the bottom is you're reaching out to them and it's a lot more hard work with these marketing methods, right? So the top obviously is going to be TV commercials. TV commercials to me are the thing that really build credibility for everything. You have people calling you. It's very hands-off once you have it set up and dialed in with the right scripts, the right shows and stations and things like that we feel like we've done really well. You don't have to touch it for at least 6 months, if not 12 to 18 months. I was actually talking to Ryan Pineda the other day, and he's ran the same TV commercial for 4 years.
Yeah.
He hasn't touched it for 4 years. And so you have TV. That's inbound marketing, and you have to only have to get about 10 to 15 leads per deal. We actually have a lot of clients that said it's actually between 5 and 10 leads to actually get a deal.
So that's what I would have expected.
Right. And so that to me, that's the top. Now working down, radio, we do radio as well. Radio is very similar to TV in the fact that you have people calling you. It is credibility. You're getting, and I didn't mention with TV, radio is the same way where it's a broad reach, but you can dial it in with the stations and shows that you're targeting, but you're getting so much more exposure. So I'll give you some math here. Direct mail, if you send a direct mail campaign out, let's say 1,000 postcards, it's going to cost you about $5, or it's going to be $500 to hit 1,000 people. With TV commercials, it's closer to $5 per 1,000 people.
Gotcha. So
you're able to get 100 times more impressions with TV compared to postcards.
Right.
And not only that, people hate postcards, right? I mean, obviously they work if you hit the right person at the right time. And so you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with those two channels, and people are calling you. Then you start getting into the channels that are still inbound, but they still can take it still takes some time and effort, more time and effort. So then you have postcards. And I let me back up. Billboards is in there somewhere. I don't recommend billboards for everybody. I know that a lot of people have tried it and failed.
Yeah.
My opinion on billboards is you have to have a lot of marketing out there to make billboards work, because then that billboard is just the extra thing that...
It's omnipresence.
Yeah, exactly. So
until you have everything else going, billboards are worthless. Yeah. Once everything's going, billboards add value.
Exactly. Yep. So with direct mail is still, I could consider an inbound channel. People are calling you. It is a little more intrusive because you're actually physically sending them the postcard that they don't want, most people. The time and dedication to it, even if you have a mail house doing it, you still have to approve the message. You still have to approve the postcard. You still have to say, what is my, is this working? Do we need to change it up? You have to know what list you're hitting. There's still, some things that you have to do with that, even if you have someone else fulfilling it.
So there's more cognitive burden.
It is 100%. Yeah. And, for me, again, working smarter is how little time can I put in and get a lot out of, right? Then working our way down, Google PPC and Facebook. Those are things that you're probably going to hire out. Probably less time dedicated to it, but there's still, it can change dramatically. Who mentioned? Someone mentioned the other day, or maybe it was earlier today. Oh no, I think it was you. PPC, right? Your PPC's going well, and all of a sudden you have a big hedge fund that comes in and spends a crap load of money.
Just outspend you.
Then you're
out
like,
of business.
What do I do? Do I change keywords? Do I add more to my budget? I mean, there's just so much and it can change overnight, right? And so, and Facebook can be the same way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then working our way down, cold calling and texting. I mention that a lot as a channel that I just think is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
One, you have texting is obviously taken a hit the last few months with regulations. I think calling is going to be the next one they're gonna even regulate more. But you have to get through, and I don't know if you know numbers on this based on your clients, but 50 to 100 leads typically to get a deal with Facebook, or excuse me, with cold calling and texting.
I think numbers are worse than that. You have to have typically a certain number of conversations. So it's not leads. So you get contacts that turn into leads, and then the leads that turn into appointments. So yeah, it's more than 100. If we're going just like straight, like a list of people, it's more than 100.
No, I'm sorry. It's actually people that raise their hand that say that I want to sell.
Yeah. So people
And
that say,
then you start having the conversation, you start digging into it.
yeah, so 70 to 100, somewhere around there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so how much brain power does that take? If you have your team doing it, it's 100% brain power. Even if you have someone else doing it, let's say you hire a company to do it, they still have to send you the leads that you have to sift through and say, are we going to make offers on these? Are we going to go out to the appointment? People ghosting you. I mean, there's all kinds of different things to it, right? So it can be high return, 100%, but then the time and dedication it takes to it, to me, is like, we'll never do texting and cold calling.
Well, you didn't even take into account the quality control. You got to listen to the cold callers. You got to review the text messages. Are they saying things that open us up for liability?
Good point.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's the reason why it's the reason why we created an LLC in Delaware. For that specific reason.
Yeah. And then down there is driving for dollars, which could be a great source. I don't know too many people doing that these days.
There are a few people doing it, and when they do it, they crush it because it is laborious.
There's actually AI that does that now, I hear. That'll actually go into Google Maps and like
it's not a surprise.
Looking at houses and then automatically just send letters out. But anyway.
I've heard something about that. Yeah.
So again, we're going back to working smarter. Would you rather put something out there that you don't have to manage that much, that builds a lot of credibility, that does a lot for your business outside of just direct ROI, that you have to spend less time working leads, and the other thing is those leads that come in, you're having to not have to build so much credibility for yourself. It's not saying, who am I? Here's what I do. Here's why you should use me. Usually they already respect you out of the gate. They know you're spending money on TV. They think you're spending probably tens of thousands of dollars a month.
Or more.
They think you're way bigger than you are,
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things there. And then just moving all the way down is how much time and effort does it take, even if you're getting a 10 to 20 times return on investment, and you can only spend so much. You only have so many lists you can hit. I talk to people that are in smaller markets, and they're like, we go through the lists in, I don't know what it is, a few months or whatever it is, and then we have to go through them again. And then eventually those lists get worn out, and then where do you go?
Right.
So for me, we do every single one of those except for the bottom tier. We don't do driving for dollars. We don't do cold calling and texting. We do Facebook, Google, direct mail, billboards, radio, and TV, right? And so one of the things that I've been pressing our clients to look at is what you should keep and what you shouldn't, because it frustrates me when someone starts TV with us and they're getting a 10 to 20 times return on investment texting and cold calling. They come in with TV, 3 to 6 months, they're getting a 3 times return on investment, right? Which is kind of on the low end of what we typically see. But still, that's not bad, especially considering all the other benefits that TV has. And then they'll be like, we're thinking about taking that, $5,000 or $7,000 or whatever it is and putting it into texting and cold calling. I'm like, why don't you just add more to texting and cold calling? Why would you get rid of TV that's giving you a 3 times return on investment? And so I've had this conversation with a lot of clients is, at what point do you cut TV? And I'm like, to me, if it's even breaking even to 2 times, it's probably worth it for many reasons. One is all the other benefits that you're getting, the credibility, the branding, your personal branding, all kinds of different things. On top of that, you don't know if there's deals that you're getting from a lead channel, especially TV, that could have been attributed other places. So there's many times a year where we get to the closing table, they said they found us on Google, and they'll swear by it, conversations, because my team usually does a pretty good job of like asking them multiple times where they came from. And then they'll get to the closing table and they'll be like, man, I'm just so glad I saw your TV commercial. It's like, okay, now you tell us, like we asked you so many times where you found us, and they swore it was Google. And so that's one. And the biggest thing is all the channels work together. So we don't get a killer return on Facebook. We don't get a killer return on Google. We don't even get a killer return on postcards. We get like a 2 to 3 times return, which isn't horrible, but it's not great. TV is our best lead channel. This year we're 6 times return, and we've been up to 12 times return. But now I'm like, if we can break even on a channel, I'm just going to keep it because of those things that I mentioned. But on top of that, some of those things that haven't ran long enough to really see the benefit, or to really see like what it does on, on a longer term scale. So for me, 12 months is a decent gauge of where you can be on a marketing channel. But really, you probably need more data than that. And so I looked back at Google and Facebook, and we didn't get a great return, but we never ran for more than about, I want to say 18 months at a time. We'd kind of like do 12 months and we stopped, and then 18 months. And it was just kind of like back and forth of like, we're not getting a great return. But now I'm like, you know what? We have the money to do it. We have all these other marketing channels that are working well. If it's at least breaking even, we're going to keep it. Now, if you're breaking in on texting and cold calling, I absolutely wouldn't recommend it. But once you get to those higher tiers of marketing, then you can be a little bit more forgiving on your ROI.
Yeah, it's hard to measure how much each one benefits the other. It really is, because how many people will be Googling Tony Javier if Tony Javier isn't on TV? Why would they Google that, right? So then how many SEO leads, quote unquote SEO leads, did you get that you attribute to SEO and your brilliant SEO team versus TV or radio?
And then if you're great at Facebook retargeting, they saw you on TV, they went to Google, you went to your website, you retargeted them for Facebook, and all of a sudden, hey, I saw you on Facebook.
Yeah, it's a great Facebook lead.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to truly attribute. And then the other thing too, like I know like we had Gino Paloma, right? He's one of our star students in the past. And like we talked about TV, he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, you're building a social media brand, right? You're letting everyone know in your market you're the guy. When you go to a meetup, when you get your teams out there and you're talking to these other wholesalers, you automatically have more credibility amongst other wholesalers. You're more likely to get other deals sent to you from those other wholesalers. I mean, it's just like PPC. One of the things that just pisses me off, right, forever, was some new wholesaler Google's sell my house fast, clicks my ad, and calls me, right? Like, how much money did you burn there, right? Of my money. But people do the same thing with TV. It doesn't cost us anymore. I mean, how many wholesalers call you? Like, I got deals to move.
I'm not sure. My team doesn't really, I mean, we don't really buy properties from wholesalers, and my team kind of knows that. So they probably get those calls and they're like, we don't want to deal with you just because it's like texting and cold calling. I mean, we've been through hundreds of leads, and I bought one deal from a wholesaler just because they don't run their numbers right. It's just it's a waste of time for me.
They don't run their numbers right, and I haven't worked. Take that back. We did do a JV deal. It was like a $50K wholesale fee to us. They don't run their numbers right, which usually is to our detriment. But every once in a while, extremely to our benefit. They don't know how to run their numbers.
Actually, to compound on that point, Dean Rogers, you've had him on the show. We got him into Family Mastermind, and he was on the show here. So he's been running TV with us for 3 years now. He started TV. He had a very small meetup group. He wasn't getting much traction from it. Started TV commercials, and then all of a sudden the credibility and people just started coming to his meetups. Same thing started happening as people would call him and be like, "Hey, I see you're on TV. We've got a wholesale deal. Yada yada." And so he grew this massive meetup group in Fresno.
It's huge.
And he has Friends with Benefits. I think he's talked to you about that,
which
is super cool, super funny. And he didn't tell me what his stats were last year, but I think it was the year before, did an extra $1 million that he didn't do the year before with JV deals from his meetup group, which again came from, a lot from TV. I'm not going to say it's all from TV, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you're 100% right. There's so much outside of just direct people, sellers calling you that you get benefit from. We've raised a lot of private money in my hometown in Wichita. Anytime I get a referral from another one of our private lenders and that person calls me and says, "Oh, I've seen you on TV," you can tell the conversation's way different than if someone refers me to someone that's in California and they're like, "What do you do in Wichita?" And like, then you have to explain it and then you have to build that credibility with them. So yeah, it's just, there's nothing else that can do what TV does other than maybe social media, but it takes a lot to build a social media presence.
It's not just dollars.
I mean, you're talking about dollars and you're talking about years to build. Unless you
I was saying on TV, it's just dollars. That's it.
It's dollars. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Joe Schmo, who had never done a deal before, can get on TV and people are like, "Oh wow, look at that guy."
Yeah, and there's something we talk about in our sales training process where we talk. It's and we have these goofy terms in my sales training, but one of them we call it stranger danger, right? And it's like, how long does it take to go from a stranger danger to you and I are having a comfortable, cordial conversation where we're laughing at each other's jokes? How long does that take? Inbound lead, 30 seconds, minute and a half. Cold calling and texting leads, it's like 3 to 5 minutes to get this guard down.
I'm surprised it's not more than that.
Yeah, well, maybe some of the stuff we're doing. But yeah, to get the guard down, it takes quite a bit of work. If it's an outbound lead versus an inbound, you get instant credibility. So you mentioned the return on marketing. So I'm curious to get this perspective. So, not growing up, I've heard forever in this business, you want to have like 4X, 5X marketing at least, right? Or ROI at least, because if you're not getting that, you got to cut it. And I was like, 1X, 2X, like if I'm breaking even, I'm feeding my team, like it's fine, right? It's kind of the mindset I've had for the longest time. And then I do Whale Club with Paul Sparks. And one of the things he talks about is we generally run most businesses anywhere from a 20 to 40% profitability. If you're at 30%, you're actually an upper echelon of business, right? Most people are probably in 15 to 20%. And if that's the case, that means that if you have let's just say a $10,000, that's a low number, but just for easy math, if $10,000 comes in, right, 8,000 of it's already gone due to expenses and so on, because that's your profitability. If you're running 20% profitability, you only get to keep 20, the 2,000 net. The 8,000 is already spent before it came in. And it's for that reason, you have to have at least a 5X ROI if you're running a 20% margin business, or else if you're running a 20% margin, or if you're running a 20% profitability business, but you're getting a 2X ROI, by the time that money comes in, you're already upside down. Curious what your thoughts on that.
So there's truth to that. Here's what you're not considering, and maybe you have thought of this, is what we're doing now. Let's say you're doing 5 deals a month, right? There's a certain overhead that it takes to do 5 deals a month or 10 deals, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
If you add another marketing channel that brings you another deal a month, are you having to spend, what is that number, 10 to 20%? So from 5 deals to 6, so adding 1, that's 20% more deals. Are you adding 20% more overhead?
Not more overhead, no.
Probably not.
No.
So there's a point where you have to look at it from a net income perspective, but then there's a certain point once you start adding things on, you're not spending 80% of that money from overhead, right? So if I add another $2,000, or let's call it $5,000 a month of PPC, it's bringing me 10. That's a 2 times return. There's an extra $5,000 coming in. How much of that extra are you spending with that one extra deal? It's probably an extra commission with your people, and there might be a little bit of extra overhead with TC and things of that nature.
Right.
So I think once you start doing more deals, then you have to look at it from perspective of how much extra that deal is taking in overhead compared to the whole business itself.
Yeah. It's a great point. So we never really debated it, so I just want to get your perspective because we were just talking about that specifically. Now you have 100-ish, 110, 115 clients with you guys right now. So I imagine in having that many different clients, you get a chance to see what's working and what's not. Do you ever see operationally, whether it's sales, processes, whatever, some of the biggest differentiators between the operators?
Well, it's interesting because when we talk to a client and they come on as a client, we can typically, I don't want to say pinpoint, but we can pretty much pinpoint the ones that are going to do really well. Usually it's because they understand it and they're really excited and they almost have no hesitation. That's part of it. And that's part of their personality is like, we're going to make it work. Let's go. Let's do it. We'll figure it out. Right. So that's part of it. And then you look at the other side of it as, man, this person, they're doing deals, but they're maybe not as dialed in as some of the other clients that we have. Right. And so, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
As far as like how you can see like the difference in processes and sales, whatever,
and what's working basically.
What's differentiating? What are the differences?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the operator. I mentioned before we started that we've listened to some of our clients' calls in the past, and you can tell who's dialed in and who's not. If their team is answering the phone, hello, or they're having the conversation with the client, you got babies screaming in the background.
People don't answer hello.
That's different than, hi, this is Tony with Professional Home Buyers. How can I help you? And then, and then the whole sales process. I mean, you know all this, the right questions to ask, setting the appointment, building rapport. I mean, there's all types of different things. I think the sales process is the biggest thing. And usually it comes down to the operator, because usually it's either the operator that is taking the calls or it's the operator that's trained their salesperson to take the calls because they used to, and they had to train them.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest downfall. I think it's interesting because you've heard this before. People say PPC doesn't work or TV doesn't work or radio doesn't work or whatever. I used to take that with, oh crap, that doesn't work very well. But now it's like, it's the operator, number one. Did they work the deals, right? Because if someone does TV with us and they said, we got 90 leads our first 3 months and we did one deal, that's not a TV issue. That's a sales issue, right? And it goes all the way down the line. So I think sales is probably the biggest part of it. And again, it's the operator and the mentality of it. It's interesting because you're in sales. When you contact a company and you analyze their sales process, 90% of businesses, it's maybe even more than that.
I was gonna say it's more than 90.
Don't really even have a good sales process.
Yeah.
Like there's a guy, I'm not going to name his name. Maybe I shouldn't. Anyway, he services. He has over 100 employees servicing real estate investors, right? And I got on a sales call with one of his people, and I'm still confused at what they do. And they didn't ask for the sale. They didn't ask me to sign up. They didn't, and it was really bad. And that happens with so many businesses. Like if you call, and I would have you guys try this. Go online and find 10 businesses and call them. Probably half of them don't answer their phone. You leave a message and probably 10% of them return your call, maybe 25%. And if that person answers the phone, they're not asking for anything. Even if it's a restaurant, it's like, oh, what's your name? I can get you in at this time, even if you don't take reservation. There's so many different things that you can do with getting people to commit once they get to a certain point. They're raising their hand and saying, I want to sell my house. Like we've heard sales calls before where someone's like, I don't know anything on the house. I bought it for $50,000 30 years ago. If I can just get $50,000 out of it, then I'll sell it to you guys. Okay, well, let me run the numbers on it and I'll get back to you. And it's like, what are you doing? Schedule that appointment. I knew that from the very beginning, and that's probably my personality of just, But when someone's wanting to sell their house, it's a good deal. Get out there as soon as you can. Right. If an hour later, 24 hours later, but days later, there's no excuse for that.
Yeah.
And so the term speed to lead.
Oh yeah, and it's particularly painful. And forget the sell side, right? I'm just thinking as a consumer. Every time I need something fixed, it's just a nightmare.
And you want it now, right?
Right. I want it now. I want a refrigerator repairman over here. I got something wrong with the pool equipment. Whatever. Like I'm right here, right now. I want this problem fixed. And just forget about it. That will never happen, right? Like I've got to call like 4 or 5 different refrigerator companies, and then I'm gonna have a window of time between like you want to from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Like it's just this whole thing. And it's like, oh well, we don't take voicemails. Can you just email an inquiry? Don't you guys want my money?
Yeah. Yeah. My wife spends hundreds of dollars a month at this coffee place and the app wasn't working. And so she called in and she's like, can I just call in an order? Oh, you have to do it on the app. And we're like, the app's not working. Well, we have a policy. We just can't do it. It's like, why would you not let your customers call in for this is California, $7.50 for a latte. For a small latte. It's not one of the big ones. It's not the grande.
It's not the frappuccino.
It's a small latte for $7.50, and you won't let us call in an order. I mean, it's just little things like that just drive me crazy.
Yeah, here's my money. Please take it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've had all sorts of different friends in this industry, right? We had Jason Lewis with Invest Machine, Stephanie Badgers with Left Main, David Richter with Profit First, and we had this whole deal last year when like, what the heck is going on in this market? And we kind of saw this kind of slow roll from the West Coast where these vendors, or not vendors, our clients were like, hey, business is tough. I'm going to have to cut back. And it kind of rolled all the way to the East Coast. I don't know why it's how it rolled out that way last year, but it did. What did you see as far on the TV side?
Well, first of all, I don't understand why people cut back when they're doing less business. Unless like literally the cash is not coming in and like they just have to stop for a little while. I understand that. But when people do that for long periods of time, it's like, if you're still getting return on your marketing, keep doing it.
Right.
You know, if there's one channel, you may have to look at some channels and go, okay, this one isn't performing as well. Maybe we need to stop this one for now. Let's concentrate on these. Let's build some cash back up or do some more deals. Like, you know, there's that whole thing to go through. But I just don't understand people who just go to all their marketing and say, we're going to cut this and we're going to cut this. And then all of a sudden they're spending 50% or less of what they were spending before. What's going to happen? Less business is going to come in, right? So that's my thought on that to start with. It's interesting because we did see about this time last year a dip in our clients. You know, we lost about 5 to 10% of our clients, probably closer to 10%, and some of them ended up coming back when interest rates started rising. But it was usually with those that were fixing and flipping, and they just got caught with more inventory because interest rates went up. There was a lull in the market, and people got scared, and so that's where that whole cutback happened. Luckily, this year, we have had very few people cancel, and especially in the last 6 months, and we've actually had a lot of clients add anywhere from 20% to 100% to their budgets, going from, you know, 10,000 to 12,000, or 10,000 to 20,000, or 10,000 to 15,000, or 5,000 to 8,000. And I think that's partially because the market's still been good, and we have, you know, some really good operators in our program. And so once they start doing well, then they start adding. And to give my overall perspective on the market, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but the fact is that there's still low inventory. There's still people with 3 to 4% interest rates, 3 and 5% interest rates that don't want to give those up. I even bought my house last year at a 6.25% interest rate. I don't even want to give that up to go pay 8%. You know what I mean? It's like, so you have very few people wanting to sell. And there's just a lot of other factors that come into play. You know, I think you saw Jason Hartman give this statistic. I think it used to be 30 to 30% of the houses were paid off in the U.S. Now it's closer to like 40%, I think.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well.
And then the amount of defaults is still down, and people say, well, there's 50% more defaults. Well, if there's one default now, or 2 defaults, and now there's 3, obviously that's 50% more. You know what I mean? I'm exaggerating a little bit. But I think, you know, if you go on YouTube, there's all these doom and gloom videos. In fact, I kind of got sucked into them about a month ago. I didn't really pay attention to them. And I started listening to them, and I started going, holy crap, something's probably going to happen. And then I'm like, this is just, instead of, you know, Fox or CNN, this is YouTube, people trying to get people to click and listen. So in my opinion, if something happens, it's going to be fairly slow. And so I think if people want to prepare for it, they just need to make sure they're lean, meaning, you know, there were back in 2019, we were consistently doing 5 to 10 deals every single month, juicy deals. And I got complacent, and we had 15 people working for us. And then after analyzing it, after we laid off a bunch of people, we probably only needed maybe 10 of those. And so long story short, we had a few months that were like really slow. So we ended up cutting back pretty quickly. We went from 15 employees to like 3. We're back up to like, I think 10 or so in that business. So I think that's one thing, is looking at your business and say, what am I spending money on, even if things are really good that you don't need?
Right.
And then just being smarter with the deals you're doing. So we may or may not get into it, but I funded some deals this last couple of years. And one of the things that I did wrong, big things, is I funded deals in a certain price point that now that things have shifted, or interest rates have changed, I should say, the upper price point properties are getting hit
Hard.
a lot more than if lower price properties are getting hit.
Yeah. I mean, well, when you say higher price points, I mean, like what kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, it's all market specific.
Yeah.
$1 million is not much in San Diego.
It's
$1 million is a mega mansion in Wichita, Kansas.
Right.
So in Wichita, Kansas, a Midwest market, I don't even know what our median price point is. I want to say it's probably 180 to about 180,000, give or take. And so to me, in Wichita, Kansas, anything above 250, we have to second guess. Okay, is it in the right area? Is it gonna, is it show well? Is the floor plan okay? I mean, there's a lot of different factors. Whereas if we flip something that's 150,000, that's a lot more forgiving. And then again, in San Diego, $1 million, literally, like you have to spend $2 million to get like a pretty nice house. It's insane. And so I think that's one big thing, is making sure that the price points that you're choosing are ones that if the market does take another hit or something happens, that there's going to be a lot of buyers in that pool. Because once you go to the upper price points, one, interest rates are going to hit those properties more on a monthly payment. Two is there's not as many people in the upper price point. Whereas if you hit that first time home buyer range, there's just always going to be people in there. And in a bad market, there's always people that will move from an upper price point down, but they're not going to move down to up.
Well, I mean, I know I've left countless amounts of money on the table. I know that for sure, because I've never wanted to have a large flipping company. Just didn't want to do it. Right? I saw too many people lose everything in 07 through 09. Right? I got to witness it firsthand. The other thing, and this is just my own paranoia, is I never want to do anything higher, significantly higher than median, like no more than like 50K past median, because you never know when the market's going to shift. You just never know. But when it does, median below is always safe.
100%.
Median above, you just don't know. You have to have a killer product. If it's above median, it's got to be a killer product, priced great. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of languish out there.
Yep. And then the other thing is just not taking on big projects.
Right.
Our average rehab is probably 50,000, which is pretty decent, I guess, overall, especially in Kansas. In San Diego, it's a kitchen remodel.
Yeah.
But just not taking on big projects. If you have a flip project, try to do something that's 45 to 60 days, I would say at the most. And then, anything over 100,000 remodel, I'd second guess, just because things can happen. And if it pushes out to 4 months to 6 months, then there's more chance of the market changing and, the margin slipping pretty easily. I
have a pretty crazy risk tolerance, but like big rehabs just scare me, right? And so like we had a deal, we canceled on it. It's like, what was the problem? Galvanized piping. That was it. Like, I don't want to replumb a whole house. I don't know how long it's going to take, right? I don't know what we're going to have to do, re-drywall and this or that, retile. Like, I hear galvanized pipes, and I was like, I want nothing to do with this house.
Smart.
Right? And so I'm not sure it's necessarily smart. I just know that I am not qualified to turn that property around quick, right? Because who knows what else is behind that, beyond the galvanized piping. So one thing I've noticed, right, because I get to keep my ears close to the ground, get to hear other people, what's working in their business, what's not working. I've noticed that you guys are picking up quite a bit of momentum in the TV advertising space. What would you attribute that to?
Well, just like anything, I think you just need time and success stories. So like when I bought the Carlton Sheets no down payment system back in the day, I saw all the testimonials. Like, this person would be like, oh, I bought the program and 2 years later, I've got 10 properties worth X amount of dollars and this much cash flow. And I remember vividly, I don't remember the exact number, but I remember someone saying that they had 50 properties, cash flowing X amount of dollars, and they had millions of dollars in equity. And I think that's probably one of the things that got me to call and order at that time. I don't even think you go online and order. And so when we go to our website, see dozens of testimonials. I mean, people that are just absolutely crushing it, big names in the game. And I think that just trickles down. So, you're a part of Collective Genius. I'm a part of Family Mastermind, Investor Fuel, all these masterminds. Once you start getting success, or for instance, Investor Fuel, we joined there 2.5, 3 years ago. And it took a little while to get our first client. And then once that client got success and they came back and they're like, guys, I'm crushing it. Then we had 2 or 3 people sign up.
Right.
And then all 4 people, the next meeting come and they're all crushing it. Then it just trickles and flows.
Right. Snowball effect.
Yeah. And, the space, it's kind of a big space, but it's small at the same time. So I think once you get results and people start talking about it and you provide killer customer service. Our customer service is the best of any provider that I know. And the reason being is that I told the story last time, but I teamed up with my media buyer that helped me with TV 11 years ago. And he is the number one vendor I've ever had because he shows up on, like, whenever we did a video shoot, he was always there early. Like, I would show up 10 minutes early, he was already there. Like, that's just the kind of guy he is. You send him an email, he's going to get back to you usually within an hour. If it's 24 hours, I'm like texting Drew, I'm like, what's wrong with you? It's like, and so killer customer service. And it's not just his media team, but my side of the team as well. I teach killer customer service. So if you can get a client good results and you can have great customer service, one, they're going to stay with you for a long time. And 2, they're going to tell other people about you.
Yeah.
And so I think it just, and actually, honestly, we had results out of the gate. And I think a lot of it had to do with, and probably the third thing is it's hard to get on TV. There's so many factors to get on TV. You have to write the scripts, you have to shoot the commercial, you have to figure out what shows and stations to be on. And if you don't have any of those dialed in, and even if you have 1 or 2 of those dialed in and you don't have the other ones dialed in, there's a lot of things that can happen. So for that reason, there's little to no competition in a lot of markets. And so, everybody's getting hit with, I've got a PPC company, I've got a Facebook company, I can do SEO, right? You can throw a rock and probably hit someone that's doing one of those channels that can do that for you. But TV commercials, I mean, it's hard to do, and there's really not many people that are helping other people do it.
Talk to me about the customer service component, because I think this is huge. So you guys might be tired of me talking about this already, right? But like our vision for 2024 is just to take over sales, like in not real estate, just sales, right, all across. And one of the things I said in our strategy meeting a week or 2 ago was we're going to be a world-class sales organization. And what that means is that we want to model the exact product we want to sell, right? If you call our company, I want us to sound exactly, when they listen to, like, I want my company to sound like that, right? Which make it easier for them to buy our product. So for you, when you talk about delivering world-class customer service, what goes into delivering that level of service?
I think number one is just communication, right? Like, if I have a problem and Steve, I bought your product, if I email you, text you, whatever form of communication that I send to you or your team, and I don't hear back in 48 hours, I'm going, what's up? Are you avoiding me? There's all kinds of thoughts.
Is my money no good here anymore?
Exactly. Are you screwing me? Are you like, what's going on, right?
And the stories we tell ourselves and the lack of responsiveness.
Oh, 100%. And even if you email a client and you're, something, you're still thinking to yourself, is the client mad at me? So people these days expect immediate. They want immediate. You get on an app and you can get food in 20 minutes delivered to you. I mean, people just want things right now. So we have a rule that 24 hours is our response time 100%. With people that call in, just on the real estate investing side, people that call in, if they call in and leave a message or talk to our call center or they fill out a form, we want to talk to them in 15 minutes. That's like our drop dead time. I don't know what you recommend on that, but ideally 5 minutes, ideally a minute.
So say like our target's 3 minutes. I would not say we're excelling there.
Yeah. It's hard. It is. But 15 minutes is forgivable, right? If I call a company and they get back to me in 15 minutes, even if they get back to me within the hour, I'm pretty forgiving. If I call and I don't hear until the next day, I'm like, am I not,
right?
Do you not want to serve me, right? So that's part of it, just communicating. Like, if someone has a problem, if we get back to them, it's just going to relieve them that we're there to help them. Right. We're going to help them solve it. And then we don't cut corners when it comes to helping them. So if we launch someone and after 30 days, they're like, or even 2 weeks, they're like, like we had a guy, he launched in, on the East Coast, somewhere in Alabama, and he's younger, and he was like, he called after like, it was either 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it was, and he's like, my phone's not ringing much, and I'm like, that's weird because we ran TV commercials there, and we know
You've got the data.
We know. So anyway, so we changed the commercial. We put me in it just to test it out, and his phone just started ringing. And I'm not saying it's because of anything that I did necessarily,
baby face.
or it could be my baby face.
Yeah.
But I just connected more with them somehow, right? And in other scenarios where people have said something's wrong, we're not just going to be like, give it time. I mean, sometimes you have to give it time if the phone's ringing. But we may go back to the stations and say, like back election year, what was that, 2020? Whatever that was.
19.
So when that was happening and people were like, what's going on? Well, we'd go to the stations and we found out their commercials were getting kicked off because
presidential campaigns.
Yeah, they were paying more money for commercials. And so digging into that and understanding that and being able to communicate that to them quickly, rather than finding out a month later when we get the post-production report and we go, oh, your commercials weren't ran. So it's just a lot of stuff like that where it's like we actually dive deep into, what the problem is and try and solve it as quickly as possible, whether it's, maybe writing a new script, putting someone else in the commercial, changing usually the shows and stations we have are pretty dialed in, so we don't really change that much. But I think it's just showing them that you care and actually trying to solve the problem with them.
Gotcha. If someone wanted to get a hold, right, try TV in their market, like what's the best way for them to try that?
Yeah, they can go to our website, remtv.com. Again, remtv.com. You can go on there. You can see our testimonials, our clients. You can fill out some information and see if your market's taken. And then we can quote how much it is to spend in that market and what it'll take, and just show you what TV's all about and how we can crush it for them.
Gotcha. So when you were here last time, we were talking about expanding to different industries. How's that going?
So I try to take over the world in TV, not just in real estate investing. So truth is, we have over 100 real estate investors that are running TV with us outside of real estate investing, so we can service any industry. So we decided to go out and just target any business, and we were just getting just the low end of businesses that we're applying and taking our time. And I think what was happening is, number one, I have a lot of credibility and I'm known in the space. I've been in the business 22 years, so I think I've got some credibility there. Outside of the real estate space, people maybe don't know me as well. And it just attracted just anybody and everybody. Yeah. So just all kinds of random businesses, from a urine company.
What company?
Is that what you call them? Urns, where the ashes go in urns?
Urns.
Urns for pets.
Oh, man.
Just stuff like that. That's like, they're like, is this good for TV? And I'm like, I just don't think that's going to appeal to the masses. I'm sorry. And the other thing is, real estate investing, investors can make a lot of money very quickly.
High margin business.
Right?
So high margin business, my understanding, high margin business, advertising a time slot where everyone else is selling low margin. Right? Like, I'm kind of picturing this. It's like Learner and Row, or personal injury, or drunk driving, or
home services.
When we watch Price is Right, or trade schools. Like, I'm just trying to think of like what I used to always, like when you're homesick, what do you see, right? Like those are the kind of ads you see. And I think I'm imagining there's a lot of correlation between selling a house for cash and those other services. So I think those are maybe lower. And this is completely conjecture. Put me in my place if I'm wrong. But these are typically time slots where people aren't having to pay as much, right? Because this is typically a market that isn't buying something expensive, right? Like if you're buying, again, trade school, if you're buying personal injury attorney, if you're buying if you need plumbing services, whatever, typically not a person that has a lot of money,
right?
Yep. Versus someone that might be watching, I don't know, American Idol after work. They probably have a job. Their spending habits are probably a little differently. So I'm wondering if it's
No, you're right. You're right. So I'm going to give you some statistics. The average person still watches 2 to 3 hours of TV every single day.
today. They still 2 to 3
The
hours?
average person, yep. Here's another great statistic.
How are they spending? How will they find their way to Facebook and and YouTube, and Instagram?
Well, they might be multitasking. I don't know. Maybe they're watching TV while they're scrolling Facebook. I don't know.
Yeah, I do hear like the average person has like 2 or 3 screens open at all times. It's insane.
Yeah. And which is, I actually am very sad for our youth.
Yeah.
Growing up with devices. Like, I'm so glad I didn't grow up with devices when I was younger.
Yeah.
But here's a killer statistic: is 65. If you're 65 and older, you're watching more than 4 hours. I think it's like 4 hours and 22 minutes a day.
65 and older.
So as age goes up, the more TV you watch.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why that is?
What else are you doing?
What else are you doing? Because, you know, you may be retired, you're not working as hard. I'm sure there's a lot of other reasons that just totally slipped my mind. But the fact is that we are trying to reach an avatar of 50 and older.
Mm-hmm.
Even 65 and older is probably even better because they're
Right.
going to downsize, go into a retirement home, their spouse is going to die. There's a lot of different things that can happen when they get older. And so who's our avatar? And it's older people and lower income, and they're watching TV. And so not only is TV great for most businesses, especially if they're higher ticket items, but it's especially good for real estate investing just because our avatar is watching so much TV. Oh, and I was going to say, it's also because they grew up with TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. When a 65-year-old was 10 years old, I'm trying to do the math. What was that? 60s, whatever it was. TV was like a big privilege. And if you had a TV, that's what you were doing during dinner. I mean, that's what we did.
And you were wealthy if you had a TV in the 60s.
Right. And so that's how they grew up, and that's how they're always going to be. And a lot, you and I who are high D personalities in the DISC, for those who are familiar with it, a lot of people are S's and C's, and they do the same thing over and over and over. So if they grew up with it, they're just going to continue to do it for the rest of their life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I'm just thinking as far as like your services, right? Like you're trying to sell TV to other people. They have to pay quite a bit more if they're going to be in, I don't know. I guess, what do you typically sell? You sell like car commercials. I think like when you watch primetime, you're generally watching, pharmaceutical ads. I mean, I watched, like, yesterday was NBA kickoff, right? And the Diamondbacks, I finally watched a game, right? It's Game 7 NLCS. Finally watched a game of the Diamondbacks this year. And I watched the Suns game. And there's all these pharmaceutical ads and car ads. Like so it's going to be hard for you to compete in this arena because primetime is typically for like these giant conglomerates that don't really have a return on investment is not important. Right? Like it's just blanket brand awareness marketing.
100%.
Right? But then you go on this other side, TV or real estate is high margin and fortunately for us, low cost in those times.
Yeah, and we get quicker returns, so we get the
cash
money back quicker.
cycle is a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great thing. So to give you a statistic, when someone does TV with us, they get anywhere from usually the low end 300 to 400 commercials a month to 1,000 to, I think with my market, because it's pretty small and we spend a good amount of money, we get like 1,500 commercials every single month.
Yeah.
So that means 50 times a day our commercials being played. Like the chances of someone not seeing our commercial if they're watching the 2 to 4 hours of TV is probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
And so that is a great point, is that we get commercials for inexpensive because not a lot of people want to hit a higher age and a lower income demographic.
Right.
Right. And so we can get a lot more bang for the buck.
So then right now, what is the state of outside of real estate for TV? Is it like we're just giving up on that?
We'll
venture?
still take on clients if they come to us, but I'm not pushing it. I mean, I just, it's
a lot of lifting.
It's like I talked about working smart. Like we could go and work really hard to find all of these clients outside of real estate, and the time it takes us to find one client that may or may not do well,
you find like 5 real estate investors.
We can find 5 to 10 real estate investors that will crush it every single day of the week, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Because I and what we talked about last time, like I'm looking at the same thing, right? Like penetrating from real estate, known as the real estate sales guy to the sales guy, it's going to be a heavy lift. We'll see how this goes. So what is your biggest struggle today?
Biggest struggle today. I think it's thinking about what the next thing is. And you and I talked about this again before we started, is you and I want to do everything, right? It's like an idea comes to us. It's like, how can I do that? How can I make that work? And now it's a lot of saying no to those things. I'm way better, even than I was a year or two ago when I was last on the show, at saying no to things. So for me, I have to be very intentional. I think the struggle for me is not trying to take on too many things, I guess. And so while I'm getting better at it, so really the next thing I'm doing is just going to grow my social media. I haven't really concentrated on that. I've done a lot of podcasts and I've done a lot of things like that on other people's, and spoke on stages and things of that nature, but I haven't really grown my own social media following. And I feel like, I've got the experience and I feel like I've got a pretty interesting life overall. And so I see some people that don't have very interesting lives that are building huge social media followings. And I'm like, why should I not be able to do it?
I mean, you have your own private plane.
That helps.
It should be easier, right?
That helps.
Because we have a lot of influencers that are flying private, but you don't even know if they actually even took off from the tarmac.
That's funny because I did. Someone did a presentation one time and they had a picture of them in front of a jet, and they spoke about all these businesses, blah blah. Anyway, so I ended up getting on a call with him. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Is that your plane, or do you charter it, or whatever?" I was like, "No, that's my buddy's plane."
Yeah.
It's like,
so you have these influencers that aren't even flying private; they're just talking about flying private.
Yeah.
Right. And you actually have a private plane.
Yeah.
So you should probably do something with it.
Yeah, it's good content for sure. That's one of the first things. In fact, I uploaded a video yesterday and it already has 700 plus views, which, for a new channel is actually pretty good. So yeah, that's, I don't want to say that's a huge struggle, but yeah, I think just figuring out what to do next without sacrificing time or money.
Right. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in the last 12 months?
I think probably that my wife's always right. To be honest with you, it took me almost 10 years to, truthfully though, because, we were talking about the funding business. Last time I think I was starting to wind down the funding business, and still 12 months later, I'm still trying to figure out how to clean up a bunch of messes. But she didn't want me to do that business. And she had a very good intuition on it. But when I told her about TV and wanting to start that, she instantly was like, I think you got something there. Yeah. Got funding? She's like, no. And I ended up doing it anyway. Luckily she doesn't listen to podcasts, so she won't hear this, but yeah, I think again, the question was, what did I learn in the last 12 months? The biggest thing, I would say that, and smarter marketing. That's why I like talking about ROI compared to keeping the channel or not, and just omnipresent marketing. So with our real estate investing business, we're doing almost every single channel you can think of, except for texting, cold calling, and driving for dollars. Bandit signs, we sporadically will do that, but it's a bunch of labor for our team, so we don't really do much of that. But almost everything else we're doing, and I'm just going to continue to do that because if someone is in Wichita, they're going to know who I am, or going to know my brand is, most likely. Right. And I want to start doing that for our media company as well. Before it was just podcast, or we go to some masterminds, but now we're putting money into some Facebook. We're going to start doing YouTube.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing your Facebook ads.
Yeah. Oh, you're in it. You're in some of those ads too. Yeah. Did you see that? Yeah. Your baby face is converting very well.
Yeah. I saw Dean. That's the only one I saw.
Okay. Yeah. You haven't seen yours?
I've not seen mine yet. No.
Okay. Well, you're in there.
All right. Perfect.
So yeah, I think just getting smarter at marketing. And another thing, I want to get your opinion on this. So again, it's what can I do next, but also what can I add value to our clients, because we have a very good client base. So rather than going outside of our client base a lot, I kind of want to figure out how to go inside of our client base and add more value to them. Yeah. So we already do mastermind calls. We already hook them up with our service providers. I've got a great network I've built over 22 years that I can connect them with people if they need it. I think the next thing that I want to do is start a you have CFO businesses, David Richter. You have media companies that service real estate investors. But I don't know if anybody that really has a chief, like a CMO company, where someone can come in and help them dial in all of their marketing. I feel like a lot of people are very good at maybe like one marketing method, but they're not really good at seeing their marketing from a global perspective. And they're definitely not good at tracking their numbers. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many real estate investors that are doing deals at a high level that when they come to us or when I talk to them, I'm like, hey, share your numbers with us. They're like, we know we're crushing it, and I'm like, well, how many leads you're getting from TV? We did a $50,000 deal last month and 30,000 this month. I think it's doing pretty good. And I'm like, well, I would like to see some good data so that way I know how our clients are doing. And so I think from people just don't, that's like one of the biggest things. You could be the best salesperson in the world, but if you don't have the leads coming in, it could be detrimental to your business. So I think that's one of the things that I want to implement next is maybe figuring out how to get, I don't know if you call it a CMO company or what you call it, but something where we can help real estate investors dial in their marketing because I just don't think they're great at it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at between masterminds and consulting, they have these, what's the word I'm looking for? You know you need to do it. And they're in your face, you need to do this. But someone actually holding your hand and doing it, I don't know anyone else that's actually holding your hand and doing it for you. Going
into your dashboards and saying, meeting every month, if not twice a month. What are the numbers on this? What, why are your numbers on it? And just, because think about it. I mean, people are wasting, and I've done it for many years too. I mean, I can't say that I've had marketing dialed in forever.
Real estate, for the longest time, you could get away with it.
You could, because you could send a huge direct mail campaign and it would get a 5 to 10x every single day.
If you're getting 10x on your marketing, I mean, it's pretty forgiving. Getting a 2.5x on your marketing, man, these dials need to start getting dialed in. You need to make sure that you're getting the right ROI, you're answering the calls, you're getting back to people on time, you know your cost per lead. You have to know these things if you're getting a 2.5, 3x ROI. But we've been spoiled with 5 to 10 to 20x. I mean, texting, I think at one point, we were like 40x.
Dang.
ROI on texting.
Yeah.
Right? 40x on your ROI, like everything, you just look like a genius. You don't have to have good systems. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think that's something you want to do. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Is there anything specifically you're excited about for 2024?
No, I don't think so. I've never been like a New Year's resolution kind of person. I think every year has its own great things and its own challenges, and you don't know until you get into them, right? Is the market going to change? Are we going to start another business that's going to absolutely blow up? I mean, you just don't know what's down the road. 2024, I think it'll create some more opportunities. I think in the commercial real estate world, I know almost for a fact that it's already taken a hit. I haven't really been watching it, but from what I understand, and I mean, you do the economics on it. We even have a big commercial building in Kansas, a co-working space that we have a 4.5 or 5% interest rate, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go up to 9%.
Yeah.
And luckily, we can withstand it. Whereas if we had 10 buildings that our interest rates increased, and it would be disastrous.
Yeah.
So I think if we wanted to shift some money and some time, and again, it's the factor of time and money. Do we want to put time and money into something we haven't really done much of? I still think there's going to be some opportunities that could be snatched up in the commercial world. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be.
If you had access to a ton of capital right now, or if you were just sitting on a pile of cash, the next 3 years in commercial could be like generation changing money. It could be. We really don't know. It could be like, remember in 2009, 2010, all those houses I didn't buy. Commercial could be like that in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you could buy at high interest rates, and then interest rates end up coming down to be a reasonable, and you buy it at what today's rates are, and then later they adjust down to a lower rate, absolutely, you can make a ton of money.
Yep.
A ton of money.
So I want you to think about the last thoughts you want to leave everyone with. So guys, I would say that this is exciting. We had Trevor Mock, Carrot.
Friend of mine, yeah.
Yeah, we had Jesus Toledo with 80/20 REI. We've got, I think, just 3 brilliant marketers in a row on the show. So if you guys are getting value from this show, please hit the subscribe button. Share these episodes, right? We can reach more people so we can create more millionaires. So please help us out. Help us reach more people. Hit that subscribe button right now, please. What are some last thoughts you want to leave everyone with?
Well, first of all, I want to give you props on the show. You've built something amazing, and just seeing kind of like I talked about with social media with, I think it was before we started hitting record. You put enough time and dedication into it, for the first 6 to 12 months, nobody's really going to listen to you that much, right?
For sure.
So props to you for not only getting through that, but then also just creating a great channel with, the names you mentioned, the people who have been on here have been unbelievable. So props to you for that. And the people who reach out to me from your channel, I think are above and beyond some of the other channels that, I don't know, it's just the quality of people that follow you is amazing. So I think that's great. But for the audience directly, I would say, again, just think smarter. Think about the time and money you're putting into something and what you're getting back out of it. I think that's something that I wish I would have done much earlier in the game, is really analyze that. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that you could real estate is very great for leverage. You can buy $10 million worth of real estate tomorrow and have no money out of your pocket, just because you can leverage other people's money with it. But if you can go above and beyond and leverage people, leverage systems, and then leverage things that produce very high level in marketing, the sky is the limit. Yeah. There's a difference between those that work really hard and those that work really smart. A couple examples that come to mind, like Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey. You look at them and they work really smart, and they do the things they love. They talk to people, they do seminars. Do you think that they're doing paperwork? Do you think that they're doing the books? Do you
Collections.
Do you think they're calling someone that bought a $10,000 program and didn't pay all of it? And absolutely. So I think just thinking smarter, and it all starts with a vision, because before 2010, I didn't have a vision of really where I wanted my company to go. I just knew I wanted to do more deals. I knew that I wanted to do certain things, but I didn't realize what I wanted from a lifestyle perspective. Yeah. So I think people get it wrong. They look at what they can do in their business and then they adjust their lifestyle to it. And I'm in the mindset more, I'm going to look at my lifestyle and then figure out how I can do the things in my business by still having that lifestyle. I'm at home at 5 o'clock every single day, if not earlier. I usually take off Fridays at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Wednesdays, I kind of block most of my day that if I want to go in the office and do stuff, I can, or I can go fly, or I can go play pickleball. And so I think just looking at what you really want in your life, because a lot of people get into business for what? They want their time, they want their freedom, and they want, and what do they get?
A lot of work.
They're broke, they're working too much, and they're just stuck to their business. And so that was a great question you asked of how long it could take someone to get from starting in real estate to doing well in it and quitting their job, and then from that point to scaling to where they don't have to be in the business anymore. And I think it's a lot less time than people think.
Yeah. You mentioned the pickleball. So when Dean Rogers was on the show, he was asking me about pickleball. So I've told him, I offend some people, right? I'm just not ready to retire from sports yet. Now I fully recognize that pickleball is a very athletic thing, right?
I actually got Dean into pickleball, so yeah.
So I still play basketball. It's probably it's a love-hate relationship. I love it when I'm playing it, but then you get these injuries. Why do I do this to myself? Right?
100%.
Pickleball, I'm just not ready.
A lot less chance of injury in pickleball, and it's not for old people. If you can't come and play with me, you would tell us.
So here's my fear for pickleball, right? I have a very addictive personality. Once I get into something, I am all in on it. There's just no more bandwidth in my life to add any more new passions, right? I'm doing Kung Fu. I'm doing basketball. I'm doing this, right? Trying my best to be a good husband and father. If I add one more hobby, it's just,
Yeah, it's probably not the best then if you can't put a lot of time and effort into it because it is addicting. Once you get out there, you're like, oh, this is pretty fun. And you go again and you start hitting the shots where you kind of want to. And you're like, oh, this is cool. And it's very social. You know, you go, like in San Diego, we're spoiled. We can play year round outside. And there's a cool place in San Diego. You can just go anytime, put up your paddle and just play with people.
I mean, I know if I start, I'm going to hire a coach. I just know. I'm going to go and
super smart
and get obsessed with it. And it's just, I just don't have, like, it's the same reason why I don't golf. Right? If I'm going to golf, I'm going to get a coach. I'm going to do this right. Just don't have the bandwidth for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
One of the few things I'll say no to.
I get that.
Yeah. Someone wants to get a hold of you. What's the best way?
Again, remtv.com. If you want to go to my YouTube channel, I'd love for you guys to see what I have going on there. Tony Javier TV is my handle there. So yeah, they can reach out to me those ways, and hopefully we can be in touch with some of them.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next week.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.